Edward Schuller is the State Secretary of the Alternative Union to the old QTUs. The Queensland is the Teachers Professional Association of Queensland State Secretary, and joins me now. Edward, good to talk to you. What do you think of this agreement? Is there a lot of sort of wiggle room in this end of the agreement sort of talk? This is years from now stuff. What does it all mean?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, by the way, Gary. It's clutching at straws because this whole process now has been laid bare as a complete and utter sham, because this originated back in June and a little bit earlier with the QTU stomping up a foot, playing good guy, bad guy with the Queensland government. They went on strike. They did their industrial action, their conciliation. You'll remember, Gary, we were saying at the time, this is going to do nothing. It's not going to change the offer, the headline offer of 8% over 3 years, and it hasn't. And what it has done is squandered a huge opportunity for reform in the education system. We were advocating for a 31% pay rise. Not that that comes out of thin air, but to get rid of the clutter, all of the departmental policies, the bureaucracy, to get rid of that and properly deliver attractive wages for teachers, but more importantly, attractive conditions. And what this has done is the complete opposite. It further entrenched a lot of that bureaucracy, and it's actually added additional bureaucracy around student disciplines with a QTU-dominated safety board. So it's done nothing. I know that the headline sounds pretty good, and people will probably say, oh, well, that's not a bad deal. But I'll tell you, Gary, teachers have been calling me all day. They are frustrated. This is not good enough. And it's not good enough because what could have been on the table if the Queensland government had let us at the TPAA bargain, because we have a genuine reform vision and the QTU don't want to touch any of it.
No, of course they don't, because they've got themselves feather bedded in. And Edward, I say, as a former federal education minister, we should be paying great teachers, senior teachers, an additional wage to stay in the classroom, not by the process of promoting them out with a higher wage somewhere else. Teachers have got to stay where they are, but they've got to be paid a proper wage. The bureaucracy gets paid before any child is taught. There's something fundamentally wrong in the structure of the way this and many other departments work.
100%, Gary. There are billions of dollars in waste in education every single year in the state of Queensland alone. And that's how we get to that 31% figure. That's why we're advocating for genuine reform, because parents aren't particularly clued in on education. They don't know some of the stuff that's going on. Student results have plummeted. Student behaviour is out of control. Teachers are leaving in droves, and 8% over 3 years isn't going to keep them. So this has just reinforced all of these issues. The QTU will go and sell it as a win. They're going to say, oh, well, we got a few concessions, but at the end of the day, they kicked up a fuss and nothing has changed. This is what we said would happen from the start, and this is what has come to pass. Well, and the government, obviously, as one side of the negotiation, they'd be happy with this agreement because they haven't had an alternative put to them, and they're sort of sweet with it all. So very, very frustrating for teachers. And again, this is why we need competitive unionism, Gary, because you don't get even the conversations that need to have been had around reform when it's the two parties at the table talking about tinkering around the edges and doing what's best for them.
Well, it's just a little bit too cosy for me, Edward, and I think a year into the new state government, I would have been demanding a different set of advice. I would go to the department and say, this is what I want to achieve. How do I get the best teachers paid the best wage? What's the performance arrangements I can bring in? Why do I need a whole bunch of people watching people teach? I just want to encourage those who do. And yet what we've got now is this cosy arrangement of the same bureaucrats that have been in place for 35 years since Wayne Goss, God rest his soul, was first elected in 1989. Ever since then, they've been the same bureaucrats giving the same advice. Governments come and go, they go on forever, and nothing's changed despite the fresh start 12 months ago.
100%. And I don't know why this message isn't getting through loud and clear to the Queensland government. The unions don't want any decent reform. They don't want any change. And this is what is so frustrating, because you've got a Queensland government and a Deputy Premier in Jared Blake who supports the idea of competitive unionism, that they support freedom of association, but have run away from it at a critical time for teachers, and now they're going to be worse off for it. So this whole idea that the Conservative side of politics and their state government now can work with the unions when they fund them at every single election, when they fund the opposition, when they fund the Labor Party and their social and progressive politics, it is complete and utter nonsense, Gary. So I hope the government are listening and they see this loud and clear. It might be a win for you in terms of a negotiation, because right now teachers are feeling very ripped off, and the QTU are going to go and sell it as a win, but it's far from that. But at the end of the day, there are difficult decisions that need to be made in education, and none of them were made in this agreement.
I think they've got to be made right across the board. In a lot of departments will deal with education, because that's what we're talking about. The Education Minister, John Paul Langbroek, who I like tremendously, and he's been very supportive of me over the years, he's on tomorrow. What questions should I be putting to JP when he's on this program?
I think it's a simple question, Gary. If JP really wants what's best for teachers, ask him, John Paul Langbroek, will you support competitive unionism to allow alternative voices at the table in enterprise agreements? It's as simple as that.
Well, you've just asked it, because I'll probably cut that little bit of our program up and put it to him tomorrow. What other questions do you want me to ask him? Edward, this is your chance to put the questions to JP.
Well, I think as well, is there a bold reform project on the table at all? Does decentralising the education system to involve parents and give principals autonomy, is that even on the agenda for the government? And again, I know that there are so many priorities that they're having to juggle at the moment, but it's a very, very clear and liberal principle of freedom of association, competitive unionism, and that's what will bear the best results for teachers, because anyone can look at this, Gary, and see that the QTU have ripped teachers off, and it's just not going to go on for any longer. It can't go on for any longer, otherwise there will be a full-blown crisis.
All right, Edward Schuller, let's face it, we've just given John Paul Langbroek 24 hours notice. He can do some homework, come up with some answers for tomorrow. I think it's reasonable that we set the Education Minister some homework for tomorrow. Good to talk to you today, though. Keep in touch. Edward Schuller from the Teachers Professional Association of Queensland. I think competitive unionism is the answer. What makes the QTU the keepers of all knowledge? Oh, that's right. They're friends in the education bureaucracy. It's too clubby, and it's costing and not helping teachers. Any wonder people are contacting this program today saying, don't vote for this agreement, this whole thing that's been done. It's just not good enough. Nurses, teachers, across the board, the government's following too much advice from the same people advising the previous government. It's got to change. Fresh start.